Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Hello everyone that's here. Welcome to the show. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use to the balance in favor of fair use. Remember, but whosoever shall be on one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Hi there, Jackie. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. This month, April, is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So let's discuss some things. What is child abuse? What are the types of abuse? Which is physical, emotional, sexual, medical, neglect, and also people in power abuse, which that is this and that. How does sex abuse affect a child? Signs of child abuse. Report child abuse. It's got the Childhelp National Child Abuse Hotline, the 1-800-422-4453. Without further ado, I'm so glad you're here, Jackie. Let's do this right here first. All the way down here, we thank clevelandclinic.org. Child abuse comes in many forms. It can be intentionally harming a child in some way. It can also involve not providing the care a child needs to thrive. It's a common serious issue. It's important to know how to recognize it and how to react. Taking the right steps can save a child's life and prevent long-term harm. What is child abuse? Child abuse is intentionally hurting or neglecting a child. Often the abuser is someone the child knows. It can be a parent, family member, family friend, or another type of caregiver like a babysitter or teacher. Child abuse laws in states across the U.S. generally follow the same definition. Deliberately hurting or mistreating a child under 18 is abuse, and it's a crime. Child abuse is also common. In 2021, about 600,000 children in the U.S. experienced child abuse. About 1,820 children died from abuse that same year. Experts classify child abuse and neglect as adverse childhood experiences, which we'll go over that in a few minutes. Experiences like this can have lifelong effects, especially if they go untreated. What are the different types of child abuse? Child abuse can take many forms. They include physical abuse. Examples include striking a child, hitting, slapping, punching, kicking, or pushing, or burning them, which are also biting them. I've seen some parents pull them by the hair. That's another form. For young children, shaking is a form of abuse. This form also includes not letting children eat, drink, or use the bathroom. Emotional abuse. This is usually verbal, spoken. It includes insults, constant criticism, unreasonable or harsh demands, screaming or yelling, or making threats. Demeaning your child, calling them names, is a bad verbal abuse. Sexual abuse examples include rape, incest, fondling, and indecent exposure. It also includes using a child in pornography or showing pornography to a child. Medical abuse. This can include making your child sick on purpose or not getting them medical care when you know they need it. Neglect. This means not providing a child with basic needs. Those include food, shelter, education, medical attention, and emotional support. Like I said, people in power also, like your parents are in power of you, and then there's government officials that can do some things to harm as well and not tell, like a police officer that I was talking about last night. They said, I better not ever say that my daddy abused me again or they'll do something to me. Is spanking child abuse? State laws on child abuse vary when it comes to physical punishments like spanking. In general, physical punishment crosses a line and becomes abuse when it causes injuries like bruises, swelling, or broken skin. Research also shows that spanking can affect how your child develops socially. Spanking has links to lower self esteem and doing worse in learning activities and school. It may also affect your relationship with your child. Before you spank your child, consider asking yourself the following: is this about teaching or is it about fear? Does my child know I love them? What lesson would spanking my child now teach them? How will I feel about spanking my child later? How does sexual abuse affect a child? Children who experience sexual abuse often show a pattern of behaviors or changes. Some examples include acting in sexually inappropriate ways, having chronic belly pain, headaches, or other physical symptoms. Regression, where a child shows behavior from earlier ages like bedwetting or thumb sucking, running away, self harm, or other self destructive behaviors. Severe, unexplained changes in how your child acts. Other changes are also possible, but many are harder to notice. Examples include anxiety and depression, having trouble learning or concentrating, symptoms of post traumatic stress disorder, which they say some people don't want to diagnose it as complex CPTSD, delays in emotional development, low self esteem, recurring nightmares, thoughts about suicide and or attempting it, who has higher risk of child abuse and neglect. Children with certain circumstances have a higher risk of abuse or neglect. Examples include living in poverty. Abuse rates are 5 times higher for children and families below the national poverty level. Being under 4 years old. Having special needs, like even like autism. You don't have to be just handicapped in a wheelchair. You can have learning problems. You could be blind. You could be deaf. And you could be very well be tortured and abused. People, we need to stand up and support our children. What are the signs of child abuse? Signs of child abuse aren't always obvious. I want y'all to think about something. When you harm your kid, or whatever you do to your kid, I want you to think, put yourself in the place of that child. Pretend that you're the blind child over here. Would you want this to be happening to you if you were that child? If you don't want it happening to you, why would you do it to somebody else? So let's go back. Signs of child abuse aren't always obvious. A sudden change in mood or behavior without a clear cause can be a warning sign. Physical signs of child abuse include hygiene issues like a lack of bathing or clean clothes, Injuries like bruises, welts, sores, or other skin issues that don't heal. Medical or dental needs that don't get care. Pain in or around their genital area. Unusual discharge or pain. Vaginal, vaginal bleeding that isn't from a menstrual cycle. Emotional signs of child abuse include fear of one or both parents or caregivers, like babysitters, daycare workers, teachers, or coaches. And I can validate that because I was afraid, like, is this going to be the day that they kill me? So I remember running to the bedroom window and looking out to see which parent was going to come home first. Even though they worked at the same place, they did not ride together. He was a truck driver and sometimes had to leave in the truck. But it was always, like, okay, if it's going to be her today, we're going to be more in trouble. Okay, if it's going to be him today, we're going to be in more trouble. So really, it was always a scary situation, wondering whether it was going to be the day they do it and kill me. Fear of an activity or place. Crying often or in situations that seem inappropriate. We wouldn't lie to cry, give you something to cry about, right? A lot of us have heard things like, children should be seen but not heard. We were also taught that. A lot of y'all out there know what I'm speaking of because it's happened to y'all too. Regression returning to behaviors like those of younger children. Behavioral signs of child abuse include acting differently from other children, especially if the change is sudden. Frequent absences from school. Being withdrawn. Bullying others their own age or younger, or being bullied themselves. Having a hard time learning and paying attention. Avoiding physical contact with adults, older children, or children their own age. Overachievement or being overly eager to please. Behaviors or comments that are unusual or sexualized, especially those that seem more mature or pornographic. Who can be the abuser? It's common for an abuser to be someone a child knows and is close to, like a parent or other family member, a family friend, a caregiver, anyone close to the child, like teacher, coach, or religious leader. Other children who've experienced abuse and are reenacting what happened to them. It could even be a neighbor. It could be somebody from church. It could be a police officer. It could be a judge. It could be attorneys. Why do people abuse children? Several situations might contribute to a person abusing a child. Examples include a history of abuse. People who hurt children may have a history of being abused too. A history of abuse can also cause adults to ignore signs of abuse. But a history of abuse doesn't guarantee someone will abuse others. Exactly. Most people who experience child abuse don't harm children. Really, we don't want the same kind of pain inflicted on our children or other children because we've experienced that pain. We don't want a kid to go through what we went through. We got to be vigilant, hyper vigilant, and protect our children. Difficulty caring for children. Sometimes adults hurt children because they don't know how to discipline them. Other times they have unrealistic expectations for how their child will behave. Feelings of anger. Some people who abuse others have overwhelming feelings of anger when they face an obstacle. Examples include issues with family, money, work, or relationships. Their frustration and anger may lead to abusive acts, and in some cases, a person who abuses does so because they see the child as a source of an issue, causing them to act out against the child. Untreated mental health conditions. People who have depression, substance use disorder, or personality disorders have a higher risk of abusing children. If you've abused or neglected a child, or see signs of child abuse, seek help from a local mental health agency. Getting help can reduce a child's long-term trauma or reduce its effects. How do healthcare providers detect child abuse? Healthcare providers carefully evaluate a child when looking for physical and behavioral signs of abuse. Local or regional authorities may also be part of the investigation. Diagnosing child abuse may involve a physical exam, lab test, imaging tests like x rays. Healthcare providers will also ask about the child's medical and developmental history, observe the child's behavior and interactions with parents and caregivers, talk to parents or caregivers, talk to the child when possible. What are the treatments for a child who has been abused? The treatments for a child who experienced abuse can vary. If they have physical injuries, seem dazed, or lose consciousness, they need immediate medical treatment. The healthcare provider will provide guidance on follow up visits and visits to other specialists as needed. Children who experience abuse often need behavioral health care. Counseling and therapy can help reduce long term harm and lower the risk of future abuse. Mental health professionals can help children with self esteem and trust issues that often develop after abuse. Mental health care also helps children learn about healthy relationships and management, conflict management. Let me reword that will help them later in life. Therapy can also help parents of children who experienced abuse. They can learn to cope, learn what contributes to abuse, and develop healthy parenting strategies. Your parents need a way to learn that they need to cope, they need to walk away from their child, take deep breaths. Don't say things to the kids in anger because you can never take it back because the kid's going to remember the put downs, the anger. My daddy wouldn't even talk to me. All he does is yell at me, such and such. It's important to act if you notice child abuse happening. Talk to the child. If you notice behavior changes or if children start reacting in troubling ways, start a conversation. These discussions within healthy boundaries can help children develop trust and tell you and when they don't feel safe. And let them know it's okay to tell you something, even if what they tell you would upset someone else. Find help. Don't let fear or embarrassment stand in the way of getting help. If you suspect a child is experiencing abuse, call or contact 911 or your local emergency number if you suspect a child is in immediate danger. Your local child protective agency, law enforcement, or hospital. The Childhelp National Child Abuse Hotline, that 1-800 for a child. Remember that, the number 4 and the word a child. So that should be easy to look at your cell phones and see that, which takes calls 24/7. A pediatrician or other healthcare provider. A religious or spiritual advisor who can provide counseling and support. You should also remember to do the following. Keep the child away from a possible abuser until authorities are notified. Don't leave the child alone with the abuser in the future. Never threaten someone suspected of abuse or take the law into your own hands. Well, I think that guy that's running for sheriff in another city, another state, I commend him because he kept trying to call the law. His girl was actually violated before. The man got in jail and he come back over there, kidnapped his daughter. He called the husband, or the daddy called for the police. The police weren't coming. And yeah, he took the law into his own hands. You see your kid being kidnapped yet again. How do you not know what? You don't know whether he's going to take her off, kill her this time. You can't just wait on the police. If you could jump in your car and follow, that's exactly what he did. Well, the guy ended up jumping out of the vehicle, getting ready to attack him. and he ended up shooting him. And so there's supposed to be a trial case still on him, but he is running for sheriff in that city, state, well, in that city area where he is. But I think they need to drop the charges on him. I really do. Thank you so much, Jackie. I appreciate that. Reach out to a friend, family member, or healthcare professional. Make sure the child stays somewhere safe and away from you during this time. Talk to a counselor or other mental health provider who can help you understand and work through your feelings. What's the outlook for children who've been abused? Children who experience abuse often have immediate injuries like cuts, bruises, and broken bones, frequent injuries, learning challenges, emotional and behavioral issues like depression and anxiety, difficulty with social skills, fear of adults or certain places, toxic stress which can disrupt brain development, raise the risk of developing PTSD, and cause issues with learning, attention, and memory. Because basically, when you're going around and living your day like that, your mind is set on survival mode. So sometimes when you're at school, you cannot think about what's going on at school. You're still got that survival mode right there. Untreated child abuse can have lasting effects. Older children and adults who experience child abuse have a higher risk of social and emotional issues. They may abuse others or accept further abuse, harm themselves or attempt suicide, put caring for others ahead of taking care of themselves, have issues with sex like engaging in risky sexual behaviors or avoiding sex entirely, have trouble forming relationships and trusting people. Adults who experience abuse as a child may have long term issues like chronic pain, headaches, fibromyalgia, or abdominal pain, depression and low self esteem, substance use or alcohol use disorders. How can I improve the long term health of a child who has experienced abuse? Children who experience abuse need mental health care and support. Therapy can help children process their experiences and develop positive coping methods. It can also help them build healthy relationships and limit the effects of abuse. This can help their long term physical health too. Each night, I set aside time. I would go into one of my son's bedrooms, spend about 30 minutes with him, talking about how their day was. And so I figured that's really good to sit your children down and talk to them about their day, show that they matter, that they are important to you, and that at any time that they want to come to me about any question in the world, I don't want them to feel like any question is too dumb, that they still come to me. And that they did. Yeah, it is crazy, ain't it, Jackie? How do I help a child who confided in me about abuse? If a child tells you they've experienced abuse, take them seriously. Don't brush it off or assume they're making it up or exaggerate. To keep the child safe from further abuse, you should listen to the child. Let them explain what happened. Try to help them feel safe and let them know you're available to listen and talk. By all means, please, when you are talking to a child, don't say, "Did he touch you here? Did he touch you there?" You're planting this information in the child. So be careful how you go about talking to them, because you might actually, they say that you might be misleading the child into giving false testimony. Okay, so don't go and put these words. Let the child speak. Tell them it isn't their fault. Let them know they aren't responsible and shouldn't feel ashamed. Let me tell you about a sick, twisted guy that I met on the internet years ago. This is one of the first times after my divorce where I was trusting somebody online. Well, this guy told me we used to get on Yahoo Messengers and we go play checkers or whatever. literati, another form of Scrabble. I'll get in there and play. And so we talked a little bit, and it was a private room. And we talked about what had happened to me, what my dad did to me sexually. He said, I want to tell you something right now. He said, if any man says that they do not get aroused when they hear a daddy or an adult messing with a little bitty kid, he said, they're lying. He said, all men get excited when they hear of a grown man messing with a child. I stopped talking to him. I know he's full of crap when he said that, because that is so untrue. That is so untrue. Provide safety. Keep the child away from the person behind the abuse. Call a healthcare provider that can guide you on next steps. Seek further help. Examples include counseling, therapy, and support groups. Be supportive and patient. Recovery isn't an overnight process. It takes time, and not all children recover at the same pace. That's right. Additional common questions. What is child abuse clearance? Child abuse clearance is a process a person goes through to show that they aren't a perpetrator. Foster parents need this type of clearance. You also need child abuse clearance if you want to work or volunteer with children. It's part of the application process to help employers select potential employees. Child abuse clearance laws vary state to state. A note from Cleveland Clinic. Child abuse is a difficult topic to approach. You might struggle to know what to do if you suspect it's happening to a child you care for. And you might feel overwhelming emotions if you learned it happened to your child. But you can also offer the safety and support for a child who needs it. If a child tells you they've experienced abuse, listen to them. Keep them away from the person responsible and reach out to professionals who can help. Examples include healthcare providers or law enforcement. Children often need physical and mental health care to recover, and that's something you can help them get. So we go to the next page and see if anybody said anything in the group first. Hey, Renee. Hi there, Carlene. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Hey, shalom, Dr. K. Hey, sis from Germany. Good to see you. Yeah, that's correct about school. It's true. Yeah, it should make us all angry, shouldn't it? You're right. So let's go to the next. Let's talk about the ACEs, the childhood trauma and ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences, can have a lasting impact on your health and well being. The negative experiences of childhood trauma can affect your growth and development. Do y'all hear me? It can affect your growth. Like I was telling some of y'all the other day that it's done in my growth for a while. I was a short girl. I was the second shortest in the eighth grade. But boy, and once I got away from being abused at home and from my husband and everything else, I could not believe it. Even in my late 30s, I started growing. It actually had studied my growth. I kid you not. It's like, okay, now, so I went from 5'4" to close to 5'7" in my 30s. So, adverse childhood experiences can have a lasting impact on your health and well being. The negative experiences of childhood trauma can affect your growth and development. They can lead to physical, mental, and behavioral health problems. ACEs can also decrease your life expectancy, but with treatment, you can still lead a fulfilling life. Amen. What are adverse childhood experiences? Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, are traumatic events that happen between birth and the age of 17. ACEs can cause childhood trauma that lingers long after the event occurred. ACEs can take a toll on your body and mind. You may have physical, mental, or behavioral health challenges, but with time, you can heal. Treatment can help you put your childhood trauma behind you. What are considered adverse childhood experiences? Examples of adverse childhood experiences include natural disaster, floods, tornadoes, violence, abuse or assault, neglect, life-threatening illnesses, loss of a friend or family member, parental separation, divorce or deployment, witnessing or being involved in a serious accident, witnessing the death of another person. Social drivers of health may also cause childhood trauma. These are environmental factors that can lead to adverse childhood experiences with a lasting impact. These factors may include housing instability or frequent moves. Oh, that's what we did. We moved so often, feeling unsafe in your community, lack of access to good health care, food insecurity, limited access to quality education, financial issues, discrimination. Who's at risk of childhood trauma? Any child can experience trauma, but certain factors raise the risk. ACEs are more common among girls, which I know I've got had brothers, and I know I've got other people that are boys, and I think it's really unfair in that this situation should have said girls because a lot of boys are not they don't come forward, okay? So they got a lot of health issues that stem from that. And that's gotta bother their mind because they would always say, "You're acting like a girl if you cry. So don't you dare cry. Man up." You know. So men were taught that it's not okay to cry. So I think about this and it's helped me along. So if I'm around a guy that says, I'm not a man, if I cry, I'm like, well, Jesus cried, Jesus wept. It says it in the Bible. So if you want to think that you're better than Jesus by not crying, then all of a sudden they said, good point there, thank you. So children from all backgrounds and a range of needs. Children in financially stressed homes. Children with stressed or overwhelmed caregivers. Children with family members who have mental health conditions. Children living with someone who has substance use disorder. What does an adverse childhood experience do to your body? Childhood trauma causes extreme stress on your body. Y'all pay attention to all this kind of stuff, okay? When you experience stress, your body releases certain hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones help you adjust to the situation. This is called the fight or flight response. You may have fast heart rate, high blood pressure, changes to your breathing, dilated pupils, which I still have dilated pupils, but they said it's because of traumatic brain injuries being hit in the head, memory issues, loss of bladder control. This response is usually temporary, but long term stress causes your stress hormones to be in constant use. This is called toxic stress. It can target your brain and change how it grows and functions. How do adverse childhood experiences affect the development? Adverse childhood experiences can cause developmental trauma, while traumatic events can cause harm at any age. Tra- Childhood trauma is more severe. That's because a child's brain is still growing and developing. ACEs target a child's memory, the hippocampus, logical thinking, the prefrontal cortex, ability to process emotions, amygdala. Severe or long term stress places these parts of a child's brain into survival mode. I'm letting y'all keeping that up there, so if y'all want to think more on that. So severe long term stress places these parts of the child's brain into survival mode for too long. This can weaken those parts. That in turn influences the way children react to certain situations as they grow older. What are the signs of an adverse childhood experience? After an adverse childhood experience, a child may show signs of trauma that could include fear of other people, difficulty sleeping or frequent nightmares, bedwetting, changes to their mood, difficulty showing affection towards family or friends, avoiding situations or events that relate to a traumatic experience, difficulty learning at school. These signs may not be immediately present after a traumatic event. They usually develop after a child has had time to process the experience. In certain cases, a trigger, something that reminds a person of the specific event, can cause a child to react. How does an adverse childhood experience affect an adult? ACEs can affect an adult years after traumatic events occurred. Do y'all hear that? It can impact your physical, mental, and behavioral health. Childhood trauma can also affect your quality of life. Access to opportunities like your career and education may see an impact. The effects of adverse childhood experiences in adulthood can include long term chronic conditions. Like I got chronic stomach issues, I got chronic skin conditions, bad allergies also. This happens because too much stress takes a toll on your body. It affects the way your cells divide and replicate. This can result in cancer. Did y'all see that? It also affects the way your heart functions by increasing your blood pressure. This can lead to heart disease. ACEs can also decrease your overall life expectancy by nearly 20 years compared to someone who doesn't have any ACEs. Here's the mental health impact. Mental health conditions that can develop in adulthood include anxiety, depression, post traumatic stress disorder, which you can look it up online, which complex PTSD. That's usually when the trauma starts as early childhood. Phobias, insomnia, mood disorders, eating disorders. So, behavioral health impact. Childhood trauma makes adults more likely to participate in high risk behaviors, including using tobacco products, misusing prescription medications, using substances, including those with a high risk of addiction, participating in risky sexual behaviors, experiencing suicidal thoughts, or engaging in self harm. If your loved one is considered suicide, you can call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. I'm always embarrassed to tell about this, the risk that I did when I was 11-year-old, and I just felt like they didn't care about me, they wouldn't feed me or anything. So I decided to go up underneath the train that was stopped, and whenever it started going, that's when I wanted to go from side to side to see how many times that I could get across before it went too fast. I thought, well, if it kills me, it kills me. They don't care. They don't care if I get fed. They don't care, Nobody asked me, and I wasn't eating at school either. I opened up the lunchroom door, and the smell of food was nauseating. There was no way I could go in there in that cafeteria when I lived in Florida because I was being starved. So the smell of food just nauseated me. So when I did go home, though, like I said, I had mayonnaise, ketchup, salt, and pepper sandwiches, stuff like that. Just get something in my stomach. What is an ACE score? An ACE score is the total number of adverse childhood experiences you faced growing up. The ACEs test asks you 10 questions about traumatic events that may have happened during your childhood. The purpose of the ACEs test is to quickly figure out if you're at high risk for toxic stress. If you are, your healthcare provider will ask further questions about your specific ACEs and start childhood trauma treatment. Research suggests that a high A score is directly linked to negative health and wellness in adulthood. Adults with four or more ACEs were 12 times more likely to develop conditions including alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder, and depression, which they said they diagnosed me as CPTSD, clinical depression, which I'm doing a lot better with that since I stopped all the medication that was making it worse. What are the 10 ACEs of trauma? Healthcare providers figure out your ACEs score by asking you about 10 potential adverse childhood experiences. If you face any of them during childhood, they'll give you 1 point. The 10 ACEs of childhood trauma are domestic violence, witnessing violence between adults at home. That's one. Substance use, live with someone who misused alcohol or drugs. Two. Oh boy, mental health condition, live with someone who had a mental health condition or experienced suicidal thoughts and behavior. Three. Parental separation or divorce, losing a parent through separation, divorce, or abandonment. That's four. Incarceration, live with someone who went to jail or prison. Well, my stepdad murder. Remember I told y'all that? And my dad was in the brig sometimes for messing with children. Emotional abuse, being sworn at, humiliated, or threatened. Physical abuse, being hit, pushed, or physically harmed. Sexual abuse, being touched or harmed in a sexual way. Emotional neglect, feeling unsupported or ignored. Physical neglect, lacking food, clothing, or medical care. Oh man, every one of those, man. Every one of those. I shouldn't be laughing about though, right? Hi, our bucket list. Thanks for coming in. So, how do you heal from childhood trauma? Healing from childhood trauma takes time, but it's possible. Self care, support, and therapy can make a difference. Treatment for the effects of childhood trauma may start with steps to reduce your stress. Your healthcare provider may suggest getting enough high quality sleep. So, like they told me, so you know how a lot of people say, "You going to bed too early?" No, if your body tells you you need to sleep, it don't matter what time of day. If you got a sleep depravity issue, let yourself go to bed when your body tells you you need to get some sleep. Because later on, you might be unable to sleep. So go ahead and get the sleep when you need it. That's what they started telling me. Developing healthy eating habits, avoiding alcohol, getting physically active, exploring nature. I would highly recommend that. That's one thing that really helps me out. Going and taking nature walks. Spending time with supported loved ones. That's another good one. Your provider may recommend further mental health care, including mindfulness, meditation, talk therapy, substance use disorder treatment. How many of y'all had decided at times like I don't want to sit here and watch TV? I don't want to sit here and listen to no music going on or anything. I just want to sit here the quiet and the peaceful. Maybe hear the air conditioner unit. That's about it. Sometimes you do not want or need the excess sounds that goes around. Sometimes your mind and your body needs to relax and just take it in. A note from Cleveland Clinic. A child is constantly learning from the world around them, so traumatic events may have a major effect on the growth and development. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, are common with help from a healthcare provider. You can heal from your childhood trauma. Treatment may be lifelong, but you can overcome your ACEs. It's important to take care of your mental health. Remember, you're not alone. Just to know that one thing that really helps is when you put the blame on the perpetrator who bothered you, okay? Please do not blame yourself. Don't blame you and say, hey, I was bad. Well, I deserve it. No, 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 no. This is a parent or whoever's responsibility on treating you right, on respecting you, and showing you that you are loved and that you matter, okay? So let's not get into the hogwash of blaming ourselves. We blamed ourselves so much, and we were taught to blame ourselves. It's nobody else's but our own butt, is what we're saying. We were taught. But when we start putting the blame where it needs to be, we start staying away from violent people. We get the toxic people out of our lives. We don't even want to hang around them. And your life starts turning around, everyone. Get these negative people out of your life that cannot say anything nice to you, that cannot treat you with love and respect that you deserve. So, shown here is Public Law 93 247, Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, establishes a national center on child abuse and neglect to monitor, research, maintain a clearinghouse on child abuse programs, and compile and publish training materials for persons working in the field. It establishes a program of demonstration grants to be used in training personnel in the field of medicine, law, and social work, and to support innovative projects aimed at preventing or treating child abuse or neglect. Provides not less than 50% of the funds appropriated under the Act any fiscal year. Okay, hold on a minute. I don't think y'all are seeing this, right? So let me go back here and get this back up. Sorry about that. Just share the screen again. So this is the shown here, Public Law 93 247, latest summary. This was actually January 31st, 1974, this law. So, see, they did have abuse laws back then, and they still did nothing like when that police officer came to my home, right? I'm going to get over here right quick and put this, change that around right there. So it establishes a program of demonstration grants to be used in training personnel in the field of medicine, law, and social work, and to support innovative projects aimed at preventing or treating child abuse or neglect. Provides that not less than 50% of the funds appropriated under the Act for any fiscal year must be reserved for demonstration programs and projects authorized under this Act. States that are the sums appropriated under the Act, not less than 5% and not more than 20%, may be used for grants to the states for programs authorized by the Act. Makes provisions for a state to qualify for assistance under the Act. Provides authorizations for fiscal years 1974 through 77. We're not going to go over them terms because it's through 74 through 77. Directs to be made a complete and full study and investigation of the national incidence of child abuse and neglect, including a determination of the extent to which incidents of child abuse and neglect are increasing in number or severity. Requires the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare to promulgate regulations and make sure arrangements as may be necessary or appropriate to ensure that there is effective coordination between programs related to child abuse and neglect under this Act and other such programs which are assisted by federal funds. So when we go, and so here is a letter from Trump, and I'd like to read that. Okay? Hope everything's doing good. Everybody's doing good. So let's see this. Okay, So this was in 2025, okay, of Child Prevention Month. That was last April by the President of the United States. A proclamation. Oh, proclamation. Yeah. America's children are the foundation of our families, the heirs of our freedom, and the stewards of our national promise. This National Child Abuse Prevention Month, we commit to empowering every child in America to lead a fulfilling life with dignity and love. And we pledge to bring every abuser, predator, and evildoer who threatens the health and safety of our children to swift justice. As citizens, each of us is entrusted with the sacred responsibility of caring for the most vulnerable among us, especially children uniquely at risk of trauma and abuse. My administration recognizes that the most powerful safeguard against child abuse is a stable family with loving parents, and that there is no substitute for a strong mother and father. For this reason, I am working every day to fortify our families and embolden our nation's children to live their lives full of happiness, health, and success that they so dearly deserve. I call on every American to take steps to prevent child abuse and neglect before it occurs. By doing so, we can reduce the risk of depression, suicide, substance abuse, and developmental challenges in our youth. Sadly, one of the most prevalent forms of child abuse facing our country today is the sinister threat of gender ideology. Proponents of the gender ideology movement are outrageously indoctrinating our children with a devastating lie that they are trapped in the wrong body, and that the only way they can be truly happy is to alter their sex with hormone therapy, puberty blockers, and sexual mutilation surgery. The evil and backwards lies of gender insanity are robbing our children of their happiness, health, and freedom, while imposing unimaginable heartbreak on parents and families. As I stated during my joint address to the Congress last month, my message to every American child is simple. You are perfect exactly the way God made you. As president, I proudly signed Executive Order 14187 prohibiting public schools from indoctrinating our children with transgender ideology, while also taking action to cut off all taxpayer funding to any institution that engages in the sexual mutilation of our youth. To further protect our children, I have taken historic action to secure our southern border and end child trafficking, and are working diligently to make our young people healthy again. The National Child Abuse Prevention Month, we pledge to stop the atrocity of child abuse in all its forms. We affirm that every perpetrator who inflicts violence on our children will be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Above all, we vow to give our children the tools they need to fully embrace God's gift of life and to carry that radiant torch of American liberty generations into the future. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. I call upon all Americans to invest in in the lives of our nation's children, to be aware of their safety and well-being, and to support efforts that promote their psychological, physical, and emotional development. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this third day of April in the year of our Lord 2025, and of the independence of the United States of America, 249th. Okay, how long I had to. I hope your doctor visit goes well. I hope these have helped. These little tidbits. I appreciate everyone for coming in here. Say God bless y'all. Be hyper vigilant. Protect our children. Protect the ones that you even see in public. You see something, say something. You may be someone's last hope of survival. So remember that and cherish and treat children with dignity and respect and help them to learn and grow in the right way by treating them with the dignity and respect. Thank y'all again for coming. God bless y'all.